Hello, and welcome to Zambrella's podcast. I'll be kicking this first Metal and Music Monday off by talking about two of the most anticipated album releases of the year, and we were lucky enough to have them released within the same week. I am, of course, speaking about Mark Tremonti's Cauterize and Muse's Drones. I've now had a good listen to both, and I think they both just about live up to the hype they've been receiving. However, I want to start this episode off with a story about one of the most respected characters in rock. Recently, Dave Grohl, former drummer of Nirvana and current vocalist and guitarist of Foo Fighters, fell off the stage during a show in Gothenburg, Sweden, and broke his leg. Fans must have thought this was the end of the show, but no. Grohl, while lying on the floor in what must have been a significant amount of pain, said, "I think I just broke my leg. I'm going to go to hospital. I'm going to get my leg fixed, and then I'm going to come back." Not 5 minutes later, he returns on a chair with a medic attending to his leg and continues the show for another 2 hours. This is an amazing show of professionalism and dedication to his career. This is just another example of the legendary behavior by Dave Grohl. Now on to the two albums I mentioned earlier. I'll start with Mark Tremonti's second solo studio album, Cauterize. For those that don't know, Mark Tremonti is former guitarist of Creed and currently guitarist of Alter Bridge, but actually performs lead guitar and vocals on his solo albums, which is an impressive feat on its own. The best way to describe his music is a heavier Alter Bridge. It still has the interesting melodies and face-melting guitar solos like Alter Bridge, but layered with blast beats, double bass, and faster tempos, which gives it a distinctive sound that can be associated with Mark Tremonti alone. I'll start off by saying that Tremonti's first solo album, All I Was, is easily one of my favourite albums, so Cauterize has a lot to live up to. So, does it? The short answer, yes. Just. I don't know whether it was the novelty of All I Was, or Cauterize just isn't as good. I'm just not as blown away as like I was with the first album. Don't get me wrong, it is a solid album, which is mixed extremely well. I mean, I don't know who produces Alter Bridge's and Tremonti's albums, but it always impresses me how well they're produced. There's also some decent variation between songs, with tracks like Radical Change being fast and in your face, whereas Sympathy is slower and more melodic. With Tremonti being primarily a guitarist, the riffs he creates are awesome. They're interesting, powerful, and really deliver a great listening experience. That's not even to mention his solos, which, as ever, are face-melting and impressive. His vocals are also very strong, not as strong as his guitaring, but impressive enough to make a great album. The only issue I have with it is sometimes they almost feel like the vocal melody was created separately of the entire song. It just doesn't seem to meld with the song sometimes. It's not a big issue, just sometimes it feels a little disjointed. I'm not a big lyrics guy, so I don't take the lyrics into account too strongly when listening and reviewing, but nothing seemed to stand out as bad. Mark Tremonti employs the help of other musicians for drum and bass, as well as an extra guitarist for live performances, and they also do not fail to impress. The bass lines merge well with the songs, and the drumming is also well balanced with the songs. I would have liked to have seen some more interesting drum riffs at times, but on the other hand, keeping things simple, I say simple, they're still complicated, adds to the raw energy of the album. So, in summary, Cauterize is an impressive album which delivers in most of the right places. The area it does fall in, for me anyway, is the wow factor. Having said this, the more I listen to the album, the more it grows on me, so I imagine giving more time, I might score it differently, but for now, it's a solid 8 out of 10 from me. What about Muse's new album, Drones? Do I feel as strongly about it as the new Tremonti album? Not really. Muse is one of the biggest names in rock because their ability to fill a stadium with their powerful music, not to mention they are extremely talented musicians. I was a huge fan about 5 years ago and learned so many of their songs on guitar and went to see them live and etc. But for some reason, over the last few years, my excitement for them has dwindled. I'm not really sure why. I guess their music just isn't as interesting to me and my taste has changed over time. However, every time Muse releases a new album, I can't help but get a little excited as I hope they might bring out something that makes me want to listen to them again. So, Muse first released the single Psycho, which featured a very strong Muse-esque sound considering they used one of the riffs they use in that song as a sort of intermission piece when they play live. However, I felt it was very repetitive and went on about a minute too long. Their next single was Dead Inside, which I thought was a better song, and once again still had the sound of Muse, which we've grown to love. Then they released the album, as well as a few other singles. It's an interesting mix of songs. The first half of the album seems to contain songs which they know are going to be played live to a big crowd, as they are epic with rocking guitar riffs, strong vocals, catching bass lines, and powerful drums that will definitely fill the stadium. The thing that feels a little odd is that they keep adding very 80s sounding synth effects into the songs at certain points. Personally, I'm not a big fan of this,
but I guess it makes it a little bit more interesting for some people. What about the second half of the album? Meh is what I've written here. I mean, the songs are okay, they're just not as rocky as the first half, which I guess I'm biased towards as I like guitar, but you can't have, I guess you can't really have an album full of all stadium songs, you need a variety. But the extra variety they added just isn't as interesting to me. However, this is just my opinion, so others may like it. In conclusion, I would probably give the album a 7 out of 10. It has a lot of great songs. I think it's much better than Second Law, which had a few songs which I liked, but the rest were a bit not that great. So I would heartily recommend listening to this album. It is very good, but it's not quite enough to make me want to go see them live and get all hyped up about them again. So good job there, Muse. Now I want to talk about a band that I guess a lot of people wouldn't have heard of before. They're called Periphery, and the reason I want to talk about them is they're going on tour in Europe to support the release of their 2 albums, actually, Juggernaut Alpha and Juggernaut Omega. They formed in 2005 and have been, or some call them, the pioneers of the djent movement. I know a lot of people don't like the term djent. Maybe it's a silent D, gent, but it's sort of like a type of guitar work. And the one thing that I think is really cool about this band is all their albums are self-produced, i.e. they mix them, they record them themselves, and they do a really, really good job of it. I love the sound that they made. Unfortunately, early on in their career, they had a large roster change, especially in the vocalist field, but now they have a steady roster, so they can work together a lot better. A little bit about their music, like I said, it's kind of djent heavy. It just sounds really cool. They use detuned guitars. They also use 6, 7, and 8 string guitars, which is really cool. So there's lots of variety there. So I think if you like prog metal, then these guys are really, really good. So that just about rounds up the Metal and Music Monday. I hope you guys have enjoyed listening to this. I've definitely enjoyed researching the stuff here, and it's been really good fun, actually. So I'm going to continue with this. If you want to hear more or whatever, I'll be tweeting stuff on my username is @Zambrella101. So please follow me if you want to keep up to date with what I've been doing, or you want to ask me any questions. I'll happily reply to those on Twitter. Once again, thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you guys on the flip side.